more time at Michigan my freshman year than I did at State.
Welcome to Rock is Reality. Get ready for unfiltered and unapologetic culture, entertainment, relationships, and a little bit of politics on Motor City Woman Radio. Follow Rock is Reality on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. In the meantime, let's go. Welcome to Rock is Reality. I want to also remind Terrence and Jehan, if you can, I don't know if you are able to, if you have another device, if you could share this on your pages, because hopefully people will tap in and ask questions that you all, they can get a little free game today. But of course, we are going to direct them to call you all and schedule appointments. Myself and my husband will be scheduling one soon. Because we got two children and we have a hybrid adult, I like to call her. She's 18.
She is a hybrid adult. She's
a hybrid. I told her, you are an adult legally, but you're not a grown-up because we still take care of you. But anywho, welcome everyone to Rock is Reality tonight. We so yeah, Terrence and Jehan, if you all can share it on your Facebook pages, thank you. But welcome, we have Jehan Crump-Gibson and Terrence G. Quinn, Esquires. I'll make sure, I was like, hubby, you got to make sure you put that on the flyer. Put that Esquire on there. So we want to make sure we put some respect on those titles. And just two of the best attorneys in the state of Michigan. I'm just going to claim it, and they Black. So, but officially, Jehan is the managing partner at Great Lakes Legal Group, PLC, where she concentrates her practice in probate, estate planning, business and commercial matters, and government affairs. Ooh. So, and those of you who are familiar with Jehan, she has a ton of accolades. Michigan Chronicle, 40 Under 40, Women of Excellence, Wolverine Bar Association. So just all types, just so many organizations that you're a part of, Jehan. So we'll direct people to the website to read the full bio, but just know she's the bomb, okay, at what she does. And I love how Jehan, the fashion laudable tips on IG. I love that, because we do just need those little snippets sometimes to think about, because we don't, a friend and I were talking about but Black families, we really don't talk about things like this until a death happens. And then, or you've got something tied up with your real estate or your business, and that's when you're calling an attorney. So we'll discuss a little bit more about that. And my fellow Wolverine, we still look good though, Terrence, don't we?
That's right.
We feel good. Welcome to Go Blue, my fellow Wolverine, who's was part of the 1997 championship team of the Michigan Wolverines of football. So you also are an estate attorney. He is the founder and president of TGQ Law Firm, located in Ann Arbor. And you do estate planning, probate law, and elder law, which is a good one, because we got to take care of our elders. We gotta take care of the ancestors. So welcome to you all both. Again, that was just a snippet of what both of these phenomenal individuals do. And I just want to give you both your flowers now and say I have mad respect for you. And I really appreciate you coming on and just taking some time, just because, again, I really like to convey information to our audience that is from the horse's mouth, so to speak, not just Google. Because we get on Google and you think you dying or something. You like, oh Lord, wait a minute. The other day my arm was hurting. I'm looking up something and my nail tech was like, don't get on there. I said, it says here that I might have. So this is, when it comes to law, we need to hear the things that are actually true, especially with the state that we are in now. So right quick, welcome Jehan and Terrence. I wanted to have Jehan go first since she is the lady, one of the ladies here. Tell us just in layman's terms what you do as far as estate planning, probate law. What does that mean?
Sure. Thank you. And before I answer your question, thank you for having us here. And thank you for covering this all important topic. Community education is so important. Knowledge and resources are everything. And we just don't have it in our community. You're right. We don't have these conversations. No one wants to talk about it. It's taboo. But at the end of the day, whether we want to accept it or not, death is a life. We are all going to get there one day. It's not an if, it's a when. And so that brings me to the point of estate planning. We're trying to avoid probate court. Ideally, if someone passes away, you're already grieving, right? It's a tough situation. You're dealing with the loss, but to have to go through the probate administration process, which is when you're going to a probate court, there's the administration of the estate. It's a public process. There are a lot of things that you have to do to get certain approvals, and it's just highly stressful. Why not be able to handle distribution of the assets that you leave behind privately without that additional stress? And so, there's this notion out here that folks will say, oh, well, I got 3 kids. So when I die, my stuff is going to go to my kids. It's not quite that easy. It's not always that easy. So we try to do estate planning to cover what happens if you become sick and can't manage your affairs. Everybody always ties estate planning to death, and that's not true. It's about what happens when you're unable to do things for yourself anymore. So we do it to plan for that. Who's going to handle your financial decisions? Who's going to handle your healthcare decisions? And then if you pass away, what's going to happen to your property? If you have minor kids, who's going to take them? If they're going to get your money, I know I was a fool at 19 years old, hybrid adult, that your daughter, the phase that she's in right now, Rocky, you don't want that child getting a big chunk of money if something happens to you, right? Because I know me, 19, I'd have spent it in a week.
Child, we all that forever.
No, you know what? Give me 3 days.
And clock
if you get 3 days. Just all the foolishness.
Right. Yes. Even though I have to say, my daughter has. We have taught her to put some money to the side, but yeah, she is enjoying her best college life. But they don't live like us. We used to, y'all. Mm-mm. We was eating ramen noodles and stuff. These college kids, but that's a whole nother
tangent. Yeah, they're different. They make these kids different now. The kids is different now. They're much different. But to that point, even I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead. Like it's a completely different. Yeah, and I know I hit a trigger point. But it's real. But also understanding that. So knowing that things are different nowadays and experiences are different. If you leave this place, you want to leave a plan behind for your kid. If they're in college or trade school or started a business, want to buy a house, get married, start a family, you can provide even when you're gone. So that's the point in estate planning, to try to have a clear plan that's set if you either get sick or you pass away, and to try to keep the whole process private as possible.
So is that the whole power of attorney thing? Is that linked into that when people get like power of attorney? Okay.
Sure. Yes. Okay. So when people get power of attorney, you can get one for healthcare decisions. You can get one for finances. So this is you appointing someone that's going to step in this official role to make decisions that you do on a regular basis without thinking twice. So when you go to your doctor and they tell you, oh, you should really have treatment. Well, if you can't do that anymore for yourself, the person listed in your power of attorney will. Likewise, on the financial piece, your taxes are due, because we all know nothing is guaranteed in life, death and taxes. Uncle Sam is finna get his coin every single time. And so your taxes still have to be filed, even if you're incapacitated. Your bills still have to be paid. Maybe you got some money down off of some annuities or retirement accounts or whatever to take care of you. So there are a lot of things that power of attorney can help. And I just wanted to make one point about it. And we talk about, getting power of attorney. So you can't get power of attorney over people. It has to be given to you. And I like to make that important distinction. And Terrence can definitely attest to this. When people will call in, oh, I got to get power of attorney over my mama. Okay, well, what's going on with mama? Well, she has advanced Alzheimer's. She can't remember 2 minutes ago, all this other stuff, but I got to be able to handle her affairs. And that's when we got to stop. They flag on the play. It's too late. It's too late for power of attorney. We didn't do the plan in advance. So unfortunately, now we got to go to probate court so that someone can handle your affairs now. And so I thought that was important enough, because I can tell you about, we get at least 3 to 5 calls a month with folks trying to get power of attorney over people when it's too late.
Okay, so let me I'm gonna pass the ball to Terrence, because that's a distinction I didn't realize. So the parent or whomever they're getting a over has to be still in a lucid state of mind before, when the power of attorney is implemented. Is that?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, if so, we got to consider this. Where you can only plan during a time period that you have capacity to plan. So everything that we're talking about, from creating wills and trusts and powers of attorney and all of that, you can only plan during a time period that you have capacity to plan. So if you're in a situation where you don't have capacity, where you don't understand what you're doing with these documents that you're creating, and I'm not talking about on a lawyer level, but just on an everyday level, then you're no longer in a situation where you can put that in place. So she's right. When it comes to powers of attorney and you need somebody to handle money for you, or to go write checks for you, or to handle property decisions for you, you have to give that authority to that person. The child can't get that authority. And a lot of times you'd be surprised. They may not even want you to have authority. I have a lot of people come in, the daughter will bring in mom. And one of the things I do immediately in my meetings is, matter of fact, today I had a phone call and the son jumped on and said, well, what needs to happen right now is, mom is going to give me authority and get my sister off of that. And I said, okay, I understand what you're saying. I'm going to need to meet with mom alone so that I can talk to mom about that. So mom can then tell me what she wants to have happen. And sometimes you'd be shocked what mom says once that door closes and son or daughter leaves.
Right.
She says, yeah, in so many words, I'm so glad you asked them to leave.
Right.
And help now. Yeah.
And then they start telling me the whole story. They might eventually still have son be appointed, but it comes with a lot of extra information. So yes, to answer your main question, you do have to have capacity in order to create any of these documents. Otherwise, we're in probate court asking a judge to put somebody in charge.
Okay. And so this is reminded me of my mother-in-law. She had dementia. And so unfortunately, and that was part of the process where the person whom we contacted said they had to speak with her alone. Yeah. But it ended up getting to the point where we end up having to go to probate court to see about guardianship.
Yeah.
Because it had gotten to a point where she just wasn't lucid.
Yeah, one of the first things I do when someone comes in, let's say that same scenario, or son brings mom in to try to get this authority over mom. And let's say mom is in agreement, but they tell me that mom has been diagnosed with some kind of cognitive incapacity, memory loss, or dementia, early stages even. Yeah. One of the first things I always do is I ask for them to go to their doctor to get a doctor's letter saying whether or not mom has capacity to make this decision. Even if it's early stage dementia, I have them do that. Why am I doing that? Well, so that later on, when sister shows up to challenge this power of attorney, saying that mom wouldn't have wanted son to do it, she would have wanted me to do it, I'm able to, and she's saying that son influenced mom, I'm able to say, no, that didn't happen, first of all, because I had son step out of the meeting. But then she says, well, mom had dementia. I said, okay, well, maybe she did. And certainly she had been diagnosed with that. But we have a letter a day or two before the day we signed the document where her doctor said she did, even though she had dementia, she did have capacity to do this document. So we're covering all bases. But the point is, yeah, if you don't have capacity, then you are looking to the courts to appoint a guardian or conservator to manage healthcare, housing, and financial matters for that person.
Okay. And as Jehan said, if the family hasn't done that, then it goes to the probate court. And we've all heard probate is like kind of this like evil word in a way. Because when we hear probate, you're like, oh Lord, it seems like it just breaks families apart. Is that a misconception?
No and yes. I'll do it that way. No and yes.
Jehan like, oh child.
It's not a misconception, but it also is a misconception. Why isn't it a misconception? 100%. When I do workshops everywhere. If anybody follows me on social media, I mean, I was just in Boston doing 2 workshops at 2 churches this past weekend. I'm all over, doing this all over the place because I'm trying to make sure people understand they have to plan now. This isn't something you can wait on, because once you reach that point where you can't speak for yourself for whatever reason, you can't plan anymore. But I try to make sure they put a plan in place that helps them avoid the probate court process, because it can be disastrous. These horror stories that we hear about, they happen in probate court. The flip side of that, though, why I said it also is a misconception, probate court was put in place for good reason. It was put in place to make sure if things weren't planned correctly, or if we have a bad actor handling stuff, we have some place that we can go to make sure we stop them, or we get control of the situation. So it's good when bad things are happening, but it's bad if you didn't plan correctly, because we should be avoiding it altogether.
Okay, so I wanted to ask Jehan about something that I think might apply to my husband and I. Is a living will or a living trust something that you can put into place when you're still living? And I like how, Terrence, you said a couple weeks ago, you were like, you don't have to have a lot of money. And shout out to Ebony Chase. She was saying, Terrence took my little coins and he got me together. So, but Jehan, what talk a little bit about that, about let's break it down into categories. So start with, and then Terrence, feel free to chime in.
Sure.
If you're a single person, what should you have in place? If you're a person with kids, what should you have in place? If you are an LGBTQ plus A couple, what should you have in LGBTQIA plus couple? What should you have in place at these different phases of life?
That's a great question. I'll start off by saying, our token phrase, everyone needs an estate plan. Now, what that estate plan is like and what's going to be in it will depend on what the person has, who their family is, all the above. So all the different scenarios that you just gave me about somebody with kids versus somebody that's single, everyone's plan is going to look different, but everyone needs one. That's because adults have to have decisions made on behalf if they become unable to. And if they pass away, their assets have to be distributed. I say all the time, people go, oh, I'm not wealthy. It doesn't matter. Your estate has to go through the same process that Auntie Retha's is. It's the same. It's not any different for yours than hers. I mean, obviously hers is dealing with more money and complicated issues. But in terms of, filing the petitions to open it being public, anybody being able to tap in and hear what you had and what's going on, all of that is the same. There's no difference just because you're not rich like Aretha Franklin or Prince or any of the other big estates that we've heard about. But I'm going to go back to your living trust versus living question first before I get to the other pieces. So because we always get this question, and the two are often confused. So your living will is something that you set up that covers end of life wishes. So God forbid you get into a persistent vegetative state or an irreversible coma, or you have some terminal condition where your death is reasonably expected in a short period of time. Those are situations in which you can give somebody sort of your instruction book to say, hey, I don't want to be in a persistent vegetative state more than 7 days before you take me off life support. I just don't want it. Or
it gets that
keep me on as long as my money runs out and they're freezing.
It gets that detail where I don't want to be on life support for 7 days. I'm sorry. It gets that detail. I don't want to be on life support for no more than 2 weeks or whatever. Okay. I'm sorry. What was the other piece?
Yeah, it does. And it should. And it should. And the reason why is because that's the breeding ground. The idea when you're planning is to try to reduce the possibility for as much disagreement and arguments as possible. That's the goal. That's one of the goals in planning, right? So if we've seen Law and Order like episodes that are framed after this. I remember back in the 90s, Terry Schiavo, she was huge in the media case because her husband was arguing with her parents about the persistent vegetative state that she was in. And one side is like, no, she would have wanted to be kept alive forever. The other side's like, no, absolutely not. She wouldn't have wanted to be like this for 5 seconds. So if you don't have clear instructions, family members can fight, and why let that happen? So you can be that specific, and you should be that specific. Now, I always tell people in the planning process, they'll go, no, keep me around for as long as possible and then freeze me 4 times. I mean, technically, yes, you can put that in your documents and that's up to you. But obviously, life sustaining treatment costs a lot of money. So some of you have heard sometimes maybe in the news where a hospital may file a petition to remove someone because the family won't make the decision, or someone's document said, yeah, leave me here for a year, but their money ran out. So there obviously are limitations and things that you have to take into account, but you should get as specific as possible when it comes to your end of life care. So that's your living will, which is different than a living trust. And it is something, all these things you're going to set up while you're still of sound mind, like Terrence said, while you're still here and you have the capacity to do so. And how I describe a trust is sort of like a flower vase. And the flower vase holds flowers. What are the flowers? They're your assets. They're your house. They're your business interests. They may be your life insurance proceeds, different things of that sort. As long as flowers are in the vase, you can avoid probate court. I'm not going to say that's an absolute, because there are also reasons why somebody can haul you to probate court, even if you have documents. But that's the idea behind a trust. You can transfer things in, transfer things out. They benefit you during your lifetime. And then upon your death, whatever you have left over is passed to your beneficiaries how you want them to. So going back to the example, if somebody has kids and they say, okay, when they're in college, make sure that whoever I put as my point person behind, make sure to take care of, if their books, if they need help with rent or whatever while they're in college. And then they can get a certain amount when they turn 25, a certain amount when they turn 30 or whatever. You can get as crafty as you want. So your trust is that lead document that will have benefits for you when you're living and after you've passed on, which is different than the living will, simply healthcare decisions at end of life.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Good one. Okay. So
Let me
Terrence,
throw
you wanted to add to it? Yeah.
Let me throw one other document in there. So people do often come to us talking about living wills. And sometimes they're talking about to cover after they're gone. Other times they are talking about to cover while they're alive. And Jehan did a great job of talking about the difference between what that document really is when we say living will. I like to refer to the living will, what's actually called a living will, as a healthcare power of attorney. Actually, in Michigan, the living will isn't even really the proper title, but we know what you mean when you say that. So it's a healthcare power of attorney, which does exactly what Jehan was just talking about. Now, there is one other document, though, and there is a last will and testament, and that's an actual will. And a lot of times people think that that's all they need. If I had a nickel for every person that came in and said, all I need is a simple will, I'd be rich, because people think they need that because that's what we talk about. And in many cases, that is all a person needs, is a will. And let me back up for a second. You mentioned, what do people need? Everyone 18 years old and older should have at least a last will and testament, a financial power of attorney, and the healthcare power of attorney or living will. I don't need to know what you own to tell you that you do need to have those 3 things in place if you're 18 or older. Now, back to what we were talking about. The last will and testament is the document that discusses what's supposed to happen with your assets after you're gone. But one thing that a lot of people don't realize, that last will and testament only works in probate court. I don't remember learning this in law school, Jehan. I don't know if you remember learning this in law school, but after law school,
I didn't either.
Yep. Yeah. That's when I learned that a will is only for probate court. A will is nothing more than a letter to the court saying, here's who is in charge of my probate court case. Used to be called executor. Now it's called personal representative, number 1. And number 2, here's who gets everything after the time, the cost, the publicity, and potential fighting that happens in the probate court process. So that's where we start talking about a trust for people who want to make sure their family stays out of probate court after they're gone. We need to have a trust discussion. I may not end up recommending a trust because it costs more than twice the cost typically of a will-based plan. But I will say most of my clients do end up getting a trust because they do want to avoid probate court. And I love the vase example that Jehan talked about, but that trust is designed at a fundamental level, as she said, to keep things out of the probate court. At its basic level, That's the purpose of a trust. But that only happens if two things happen, like she was talking about. First, you have to build the trust correctly. She talks about a vase. I talk about a bucket. The trust is like a big bucket. And step one is to hire an expert bucket builder to build it correctly if you're trying to avoid probate court. But step two is equally important. While you're live and able, and that's a throwback to our capacity discussion that we had earlier, while you're live and able, you have to properly associate your stuff with that bucket. And the trick is to avoid probate court. The second you're gone, if anything is left in your name, it has to go through probate court, even if I built the best trust bucket for you in the world. If everything is either in the bucket, and we don't want to put all of the assets in the bucket, but that's a different discussion. If your assets are either in the bucket or automatically paying the people the second you're gone, then you should be able to avoid probate court. So with that, a will and powers of attorney, everybody 18 and up, regardless.
So whether you single, have children, or whatever.
You need a will and powers of attorney. I don't even need to know you to tell you that you need those things. Depending on your asset types, everybody thinks it's value, but it's not just value. Depending on your asset types, the asset values, and how you want your stuff to be moved and distributed after you're gone is what instructs us that we need to advise you to have a trust created. I
love it. I love it. Y'all just strong J. Let me get some snaps for y'all. I love how y'all are just breaking it down, because it is very complex.
Yeah.
It's very complex. So I appreciate it. Now I want to ask a little bit, how does this tie into elder law? Is that something, is that like when and are you all obligated, if you see an elder being abused by one of their relatives or parents, are you all obligated to call in like an adult protective services referral? Just side note, are you?
Yeah, if we see that, we do need to call and try to step in and do something about that. I like to break down that question about elder law and break down all three categories. So estate planning itself, and because it all builds upon each other, estate planning is the process where we help people resolve their two major questions. And I think these are two of the four most important questions that everyone will deal with in life. That first question is, what happens to your stuff or your children when you're gone? That second question is, what happens to you if you become incapacitated? And when you really think about those questions, you realize why I think they're two of the four most important ever. Now, estate planning is a process where we take you through a conversation where we try to resolve those questions in the way you want to. Probate is the process that you have to go through when those questions weren't answered correctly. And now there are issues. So the court and judges, the court system or judges, have to resolve it for you. Elder law is dealing with all of that stuff for people who are retirement age and older, because there are extra things that come into play that need to be considered. A lot of people think elder law is only helping people get in nursing homes and helping secure Medicaid benefits for them. It's much bigger than that, but it does include helping people get qualified for the state to support them as they need long-term care, nursing home care.
So retirement age, what is that by Michigan law considered? What age is that?
Yeah, I say around 65. So I say 65 and up. So I'm not trying to make anybody watching who's 65 think I'm calling them an elder, but I guess I kind of am.
Much respect, y'all. Much respect to the ancestors and elders. No disrespect. Quick story. I had a co-worker who I was brought up that when someone's older than you, they're your elder, right?
Yeah.
So I called her Miss Beverly because I knew she was older than me. And she was like, oh, you shaking your head. See, I was like, hey, she said, good morning. I said, good morning, Miss Beverly. She's like, Miss Beverly. I said, well, you are my elder. I'm just trying to show respect. She said, ooh. I said, oh, Lord. Okay, I'm sorry. What do you want to be referred to? She said, just call me Auntie. I said, okay, Auntie. Let's stick with Auntie. Lord. But we have to be mindful. You are going to get older. It's just not, it's not a matter of if, it's when it happens. And unfortunately, why do you all think that is, right quick, that it's such a stigma in the Black community? I mean, we could talk about generational trauma and all those things, but why do you think we're so intimidated by the process? Jehan, why do you think we don't have these conversations, because we talking about what we having for Memorial Day and the family vacation we going on, and what we getting for Christmas and all of that, right? We having all those conversations. What church we going to for Easter and all of that. So why are we not talking about this in our community?
So those are easy conversations to have, Rocky. So to talk about where we're going to vacation is fun. To talk about where you're having the wedding reception or the bridal shower, or going for Easter and who's cooking this, that's fun. Those aren't difficult conversations to have. It's a difficult conversation for a lot of people, number one, just to face the fact that we are mortals. Mortality, like death is going to happen eventually, and that's rough for a lot of people to face. You have no idea how many people tell me, I gotta come see you, but I don't know, because I feel like as soon as I leave out of your office, I'm gonna get hit by a bus and die. And I'm like, okay, well, but even if that happens, should you have a plan? Oh, that's regularly. That is regularly. And I'm talking many professionals that you would be surprised say that. And of course, my response is, well, and yes, and it could happen to any of us, but wouldn't you have a plan if you get hit by a bus? Then not. So you should still get it done. I think it's dealing with mortality, and there's so many misconceptions out here, which is why these types of platforms, Terrence doing workshops, I try to do them, is so important in getting the information out there. When there's misinformation, you don't know. And as you just noted, when we responded to a couple of your questions, you're like, oh yeah, this is complex. It's a lot to deal with. It's heavy stuff, So unpacking it kind of on your own, you're dealing. People are like, I just don't even want to, it's just too much. And so especially when you hear from so-and-so and that are the Google lawyers, and you hear from this, all those things sort of coupled together, along with those generational things that, in my opinion, trace back to slavery, but we ain't gonna go there. That's a different topic for another day. All those things together as there another day. But either way, all those things together, I think, form the basis for why folks don't like to have the conversation. But what I say, because I can't tell you how many people have come in the office needing to open an estate. They're grieving. They're in, mom or dad's house. They were old school. They got money hidden here. They have papers over here. They're trying to find this. They don't know whatever. Well, daddy never talked about this. And that's unfortunate. That is messing your relatives up in the long run. So again, I think people don't have it because it's a difficult conversation. And there's so many misconceptions about just, probate and estate planning in general.
And then we see where families are losing air property from down south because they didn't talk about it and they didn't plan for it. People have air property down, mama had 20 acres down in Arkansas.
Right.
Lost it to the state or something like that. It's because they weren't having these conversations because they're intimidating. And as Jehan said, it's heavy stuff. Who wants to talk about what happens when you die? Even saying it like that, I've spent a lot of time thinking and praying about how to have these discussions in a way that would soften it for people. So even me saying die right there, I rarely use that word in my practice.
Yeah, we say pass away.
Yeah, until I say leave.
They pass away.
I say when they leave or when they aren't here anymore, or when they're gone. I say those words because it's a softer blow, because this is heavy stuff. Nobody wants to think about what happens if you develop Alzheimer's. Nobody wants to sit and think. That's scary stuff. Yeah. But the thing is, you got to think about it. You got to plan around it, because if you think it's scary to think about that stuff and to have those discussions, imagine being your daughter who now has to deal with the conflict among siblings that may be there, who now has to deal with lawyers on her own, who now has to deal with judges and court systems and probate courts and rules and paperwork and all of this stuff. You don't want your daughter going through that. Yeah. So we invite you to have this discussion now. We've worked to make sure we can take you through it in as peaceful of a process as possible. So we don't, I have a thing. I don't want anybody leaving my office depressed and crying and sad and staying in the bed for the next few days, right? So we created a system in my office where when you come in, it's an enjoyable experience. I want you to want to come back to my office so that we can continue to take care of you. But it is intimidating. It is hard. It is heavy before you experience that kind of a service. So I get it. It makes sense to me that people are nervous about it.
So do you all find that it is more so amongst people of color, or that people of all races you've noticed are hesitant about it?
I think people of all races are hesitant about it. The other component, I think that creates a wedge or divide between, or the differences in numbers of people who come, is cost. I think people are concerned about what it will cost. And so people in other cultures oftentimes are a little more familiar with estate planning because mom and dad and grandma and granddad, they've already done it, and they already know, they already have an idea of what a trust is and what it'll look like more times than not. So they're already familiar with it. Plus, they feel a little more comfortable about having to pay an attorney to handle business for them. Now, don't get me wrong. People in other cultures come in as well and try to talk about, I just need something simple. I don't need to pay a lot of money. But what else I'm seeing is that people are a little concerned in our culture, sometimes are a little more concerned about coming in and what is it going to cost me? And I can't afford to do that. And mama, she just put John's name on the property. And when mama died, John got the property with no problem.
So they think.
Yeah, so they think. And then we talk
ghetto
to them
estate planning.
Ghetto estate planning.
So let's shift a little bit. And I want to ask, does it matter? Does it matter if you marry? Because it seems like y'all said that the family can still comfort people. So in a situation like DMX and Desiree Lindstrom, would it have mattered if they were married? Because his family still, sounds like from what y'all saying, his family still could have came for his assets. They didn't have certain stuff in place.
They could have still come. They could have still come, but if Desiree was his wife and not his fiance, she would have probably been successful getting appointed to be in charge. So every state has what's called intestacy laws. That's a big word that just means you didn't have a plan in place. And those laws say intestacy. Yeah, if you die intestate, that means you didn't have a plan in place. That's a big word, but that's all it means. It's nothing special. Those laws list who should be chosen to be in charge if you didn't write down who you wanted to have in charge. So if that was his wife, she probably would have been successful being appointed to be in charge of the estate. But because she wasn't, she didn't even really have priority to ask or standing, legal term, the right to ask to be appointed, which is why she got turned away immediately. And what else is happening in that case? All 9 of his children now, I understand, have filed to be appointed. And so now you got 9 different children.
He has adult children.
All of his 9 of his adult children, right?
Yes,
have filed to be appointed. And now we have a fight waiting to happen because we got 9 different people. And this isn't guaranteed that this is going to happen, but I've been doing this long enough to guess that judge is probably going to appoint a public professional personal representative to be in charge. Because when you have that kind of conflict,
I agree.
even if they don't hate each other, the judge isn't getting in the middle of that and picking this one. The judge is going to pay an attorney who the judge can trust. He or she thinks.
Like a mediator?
Well, not to mediate. That might happen as well first. But what's likely to end up happening, appoint a lawyer who's going to be in charge of handling and managing the estate for all of them, and none of the kids to be appointed. So it all points back to doing the right thing. Preparing.
Yeah, that's also going to, okay, so Jehan, because I love how you had that on Instagram. You were like, look, I'm not judging you, get married or not. Because even if you're not married, what would have probably put her in a better position? What paperwork would have helped her?
That's right.
Even if they weren't married, Jehan.
Exactly. And that's the question right there, because people don't get married for a variety of reasons. None of my business. Right. So I do planning all the time for unmarried couples. It's possible. And so down to the from the top to the bottom, had DMX had a plan in place that indicated, honestly, I don't know for sure, probably would have been better for him to have a trust. I can't assume what his ass were just because he was a celebrity, but throwing it out there. But whatever he had, whether he had a trust in a will or just a will, if he had a document that said, here's who should serve as personal representative or executor, here's what I want to happen with my stuff, then the court's going to follow that priority because that's who he nominated in his documents. And so he didn't. So like Terrence said, Now as kids, and I completely agree with you, Terrence. I mean, probate judges, that's what they do. They hit the brakes. Once they see this side going this side going this, and oh, I should, and oh, I shouldn't, because when everybody has full standing, so to speak, then you then start to try to prove why Bobo shouldn't be on the service. Bobo filed bankruptcy 12 times. And I know he stole money and he used to run credit card scam. And then Sissy didn't used to do so-and-so. And it just becomes too much. And then this is not only with wills, this is the same in guardianship and conservatorship proceedings as well. So jumping back to when people are still here and they get sick, I can tell you, and there's been a huge uptick in guardianship and conservatorship proceedings as people are living longer, but they're not necessarily in the best of physical health or in good mental shape. And so what's happening a lot of times is folks are showing up because people didn't have their powers of attorney or whatever else, saying, well, I'm the oldest. Mama would have wanted me to serve. Well, I'm the one that lived with her. You know, when so and y'all weren't here taking her to the doctor's appointments, and I need to do this and this and this and that. And when they're hearing and arguing, and as Terrence said, because probate judges will send you to mediation at times to see if you can figure it out. But if not, when in doubt, and I tell families this all the time, y'all keep it up. It's going to be a third party, and they're going to be billing for the services. So
that's right. And they don't know the family. They don't know anything, any of the history. They're going to be billing. It's going to be an extra bill and all of that. But Rocky, you asked a question about, does the fact that it's family matter at all? And so let's look at King T'Challa, right? Chadwick Boseman, when he passed, he had a plan in place, but there was an asset that was not in his trust. So it had to go through probate court, even though he was married. His wife had to file a proceeding to get access to her husband's asset because it was only in his name after he was gone. So he had, as I understand it, he had started the process correctly by having the trust, but he hadn't, to use that big word, funding. He hadn't funded his trust. He hadn't properly associated all of his assets with the trust. And his wife had to go to probate court anyway.
Ooh, child. Well, at least because he knew that his health was declining, he made sure. So, yeah, fam, it's time to get it in order, fam. Definitely. So I want to shift a little bit and get into each of you. What made you become an attorney? And so I'll start with Jehan, of course, first. What made you become an attorney, and why did you pick the specialties that your respective specialties?
Wonderful question. So I have wanted to be a lawyer for probably since like 6th grade, to be honest with you. Before that, I wanted to do some other stuff that sounded second, and I realized I was gonna have to take science, and I was like, moving on. So then I got
till I got to school and got the math. I was like, no, yeah.
Nope, I'm all set. I'm gonna pivot here. I'm okay. I'm all set. And so but honestly, the reason why I wanted to be a lawyer is because I like solving problems and I like helping people, bottom line. So even though I knew I wanted to be one, there were some different, areas of interest that I saw that I thought, I'm like, okay, well, that would be cool. Maybe I would like to do that. Maybe I wouldn't, which is why internships are so important, because then I got exposed to what I would like and what I didn't like. And, Terrence was just mentioning certain things that we didn't learn in law school about this area. And I agree, but I wasn't even really interested in probate and estate planning until I did my first internship. Because it wasn't on my radar. It was just kind of like, So I worked before Comerica, moved its headquarters to Dallas. I worked in their legal department, in their corporate legal department. So there were all sorts of cool things going on at a bank's legal department. I loved contract related stuff, but when these contests, honey, came up, and these people are willing these folks in these banking centers, trying to get them to change the documents and all this other stuff, and then there's trust litigation. And I was hanging out with the attorneys. I was like, whoa, okay. So this is what happens when this stuff comes off the page. This is really interesting. And I'm like, okay, so this is a way that I can get involved and I can solve problems and help people, help families. So that's how I came, honestly, into probate and estate planning. It wasn't even on my radar. And then I saw some commercial work and other things at the bank that made me interested in my practice area.
Right, because you also do business law, and we'll run that down at the end. Business law and commercial and real estate as well. Okay. Okay. How about you, Terrence?
Yeah, I don't have a real exciting story. In high school, people used to tell me, teachers would say, you should be a lawyer because you argue a lot. And then I would argue against it and say, no, I don't. But they would also say that you write really well. And so I said, okay, I didn't know any lawyers. I didn't know any lawyers at all. And I said, okay,
especially a black man.
Especially, that's right. That's right.
I mean,
said, okay, maybe I'll do this.
Woman,
So,
I mean, y'all, it's like what percentage do y'all make up of all attorneys, roughly?
That's a good question. I haven't checked those numbers, but
y'all are, yeah.
And I'll tell you, certainly in this practice area, in this practice area, there aren't a lot of Black attorneys who do estate planning or more do probate work, but not estate planning, and certainly not elder law. But yeah, so all through undergrad, I knew I wanted to be a lawyer. I went to law school, and that was cool. And then I got a job right out of law school, and I was doing labor and employment law. That's what I thought I wanted to do. And immediately while I was there, my firm hired in a bunch of healthcare attorneys. So I started doing healthcare fraud and abuse litigation in federal court. And one day it hit me. I was getting all this work from one of the partners who was doing healthcare. He was one of the best in the country. And we got a $900 million case. And I thought about it. It's going to be a long time before somebody sends me a $900 million case, right? A big hospital system sends that.
Wow.
So I said, I got to figure out something I can do on my own that I can sell now, just so in case something goes wrong with this thing, I can still make some money. And I said, everybody's going to die one day. So let me do wills. I can sell that, because I thought it was very easy. I thought it was just putting a name on a document. Well, I learned pretty quickly. Michigan has this, our CLE organization has a 3-year course that trains you on doing all this kind of stuff. I learned really quickly that this is super complex. And I think the reason why it wasn't on my radar originally, or Jehan's, is because it's not an area that seems sexy to attorneys. Attorneys go through law school and you think you want to be in court doing litigation, or you want to do corporate law. Everybody that says they want to be a corporate attorney or a litigator. Nobody's talking about doing wills because it seems boring, except attorneys who say, I'm going to do that when I retire. They think it's boring. This is anything but boring. It's probably
dealing with families. Ooh.
Oh my, we're dealing with people. We're dealing with people.
I can imagine. I'm a social worker by trade, so I can.
We're dealing with family drama. I tell all my clients, I'm the one person in your life who truly does need to know everything about you. I got to know what you own. I got to know all about the family drama and the family. I got to know about your secrets, because I'll be the one having to deal with it when something happens to you. So I have to know everything.
Who really is the baby daddy? We need to know.
Were
y'all married?
That's right.
A lot of people don't realize that I've dealt with that as a social worker. A lot of people, they'll be separated and mom gets pregnant, and people don't know that husband is still the legal father. And that's a whole mess.
Yep.
That's right.
In itself.
Whole nother thing.
Oh my God, we're not gonna get into that. But I want to ask you too, because you both are helming your own law firms. So again, I just want to give you your flowers and a hand for that. What is that like? Describe what's that like as a minority, having your own law firm. What are some of those challenges you've overcome? What are some lessons you've learned?
Go ahead, Jehan.
How much time we got?
Yeah. we got 12 minutes. I was trying to squeeze in as much as I could.
All right. Okay, that's fair. I'll keep it short. I'll keep it as short as possible. So my first initial knee-jerk reaction, sort of answer to your question, is rewarding. So obviously it's extremely rewarding. And we sort of look back over the history of Black lawyers, and African Americans in the legal profession. You do stop for a second and kind of say, this is something, you know what I mean, at a time where either we couldn't get admitted to bars, or even if we were, there are certain places we couldn't practice, we couldn't get clients, all these things. So I do not take it lightly that I have been able to sustain and expand a practice, and it's still open, and we still moving, and we're still busy. I do not take lightly. It's extremely humbling and it's rewarding. At the same time, one of the most challenging things about it is we're still business owners, right? I think a lot of times when lawyers have firms, we don't get put in the same box as other entrepreneurs. We get put in some sort of specialized box, and it gets lost on people. It's so funny. My small business clients were like, well, but if I'm like, I am a small business owner. So I actually totally get it. I'm just in a different industry than you are. I literally am the same person as you. But But it's challenging, just like anything else, because you're trying to provide the best service that you possibly can your clients, and the areas that we deal in. Obviously, this stuff is up close and personal. Not to say that a lot of other areas of law aren't, but it is legitimately, because as Terrence said, I mean, we find out the skeletons and the dirt and the stuff. I mean, whoo! I can't even tell you, these people, as long as we are bound by ethics rules, I just literally cannot even sometimes with some of the stuff that comes out. But, and that's already heavy enough, but you're dealing with the administration of a business. You're constantly trying to see how you can expand, grow partnerships, referral sources. So it's a challenge. It's a lot to deal with. It's not easy by any stretch of the means. Terrence Quinn over there making it look easy. If you be looking at his social media and see him on these, he's fresh to death with the suits. He's traveling, and it looks really good. But at the end of the day, it's you. No one sees the effort behind put out, and it's extremely challenging. But at the same time, it's very rewarding.
Yeah, see all this gray hair in my beard? I'm too young for all this gray hair.
Like parenthood.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I'm too young for all this gray hair, right? So I was at a big firm. I'm gonna tell this story to kind of answer your question. I was at this big firm, and things didn't go so great towards the end of that process, and so I decided to leave. They probably wanted me to leave at the same time, but I decided to leave, and I was burnt out. I was done practicing. A lot of people don't know this. I was done practicing. I was going to give up on it. I was going to go into higher ed or something like that. I only started this firm so that I could make a couple of dollars until I figured out my next move. I had no plans on owning my own business. Well,
God.
That's right. And it was 100% God. I ended up loving the fact that I was my own boss. And I didn't have people watching everything and deciding when I could go on a field trip with my kids or how much money I was going to have to make without even asking me my input on it. Now, here's the when you say what challenges did we overcome? I started on my own, and then the economy crashed. I launched this firm in September 2008. So that was right before the bottom dropped out of everything, and I launched a wills practice. So I proceeded to lose everything between 2008 and 2013. I was the only person here. I was doing everything from answering the phones to doing the marketing, to doing the plans, to meeting with the clients, to printing the stuff, to fixing the printers, all of that stuff that entrepreneurs do in those early days. I kept going. Look, we lost everything, like I said, but slowly but surely, everything started to turn back around and everything started to grow. So I went from not being able to pay my mortgage not too long ago to now, just a month ago, I took my entire staff, about 12 people, on a retreat up north of Traverse City and paid for everything. And to see the joy on their faces.
I love it. Wine country.
That's right. That's right.
Yes.
We did that. Awesome. And to see how much fun they had, to know that I'm providing jobs for people now. So when Jehan talks about it's rewarding, it was unbelievable to see them hanging out on a retreat that I planned and that I put together, because I remember the days when none of them were at the firm. And then I was struggling and sitting up at my desk every day like this saying, God, please just send me one client. Please. Let's start with one. Right. And now it's one. God, please give me a break today. Please, can I get an hour off today?
Right.
So it's amazing. It's wonderful. I would not at this point, and last thing I'll say on this, it would be very hard for me to do anything other than own my own. I'm not saying I wouldn't do it, but it'd be very hard at this point because all of the struggle and everything, it was well worth it.
I love that. I love it. So right quick, tell people where they can follow you. And we're going to end with a quick little fun question. But let's get that out the way, where everyone, websites, you all are accepting new clients, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, everyone. Yes. And I'll be calling one of y'all for my consultation soon. Hubby and I will be coming in.
Got to keep paying all these people I just talked about. I got to keep paying them. So yeah, we accepting clients.
Yeah, Terrence, you better put his website up. He's paying for retreats in Traverse City. So agreed. So you can find us. Our website is www.GL Legal Group. So as in Great Lakes, GLLegalGroup.com. We're on social media at that same handle. So GL Legal Group. So you can find us on Instagram, Facebook. probably Twitter, at gllegalgroup.com. My Instagram is Fashion Lawble. So Fashion LAWBLE. And sometimes I will put tips. As Rocky was saying, I'll do these little videos that just kind of give you little bite-sized pieces of some of the stuff that we talked about. And it's real life occurring stuff. I never talk about a tip that's something that I have not dealt with multiple different times. So you can kind of get that good sort of practical knowledge. Because again, when you're listening to legal words and $1 million words like intestacy and things of that sort, you can get bogged down, but you can go there for your practical tips. And then of course, reach out to us, and I will absolutely plug Terrence Quinn, who I've sent when I've either had a conflict, I've sent business, or sent, and if I just got too much on my plate. He is phenomenal. If you go see him, you will also be in great hands.
Yeah, I was out here doing this, and I was looking around, and there weren't a lot of attorneys that looked like me. And then I saw this young lady pop up named Jehan Crump-Gibson. I said, "Oh, she's figured this thing out. She's out here killing it. I better do better because she's out here taking everybody's." Now I'm just playing. She's doing a great job. I've been watching her for years now, and she's out here just blazing trails. Mine is just as simple as hers. You can reach me through TGQ Law. That's everything. TGQlaw.com is the website. And then TGQ Law is on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And we do a lot of things. On my website, there's a lot of information. There are a lot of videos that even if you're using another attorney, you should at least start with those videos because they really give you a good foundational base for the discussion that you're going to have with the attorney. So if you just go to like the Start Here page on the TGQ Law website, you'll get a lot of information right there.
I love that. And I love how you all are not stingy with the information, and that's good to at least get people started and to understand and to alert them. Okay, we're going to end with a fun game. If you could have a superpower, what would it be? And what would you do with it?
That's a good one. I think if I had a superpower, I would be visible. And I think how I would use that, yes, I would be able to like snap a finger and become invisible and like sneak up somewhere and be really stealth and then just observe and listen. I don't want to read people's minds. I've heard that when that's going a little bit too far, and that would just do too much to my psyche. So I don't want to read minds, but I'm invisible. Even with small stuff, being able to just go in somewhere real quick and then pop back out and just be unnoticed, that would be awesome. Or just creeping up in different places and being able to see things and figure out what's going on without being detected. That's what I think I would do.
I love it. Yep.
Yeah, I think I would want to read minds, but I'll say I want my superpower to be probably being able to see into the future. Kind of like one of those Doctor Strange things where he saw what was about to happen, so he knew which way we needed to do. I try to see into the future, not with my practice, right? I can see the disaster that people are walking towards if they don't plan, right? So I'd want to actually see it so I can say, look, you don't want to do that. So I could warn people a little bit more directly about what they need to do and how they need to move forward.
I love it. And Jehan, I'm sorry if we didn't mention it. Great Lakes Legal Group is located where?
It's located in Southfield, Michigan. And in addition to my practice areas, I should also throw it out here. We talked about some things with, you were talking social worker, you seen mom, still married, but having a baby otherwise. I have a partner that does family law. Regularly, we have to work together with clients, because hers intersects to mine with estate planning and then probate work. We also handle criminal, and then we've got a civil practice too, employment claims, commercial claims. So we've got a couple folks at the shop that do things that I don't do as well.
All right. Love that. Love it. All right. So is there anything, we've got one more minute, you all. I want to thank you all again. We probably have to do a part 2 of this because it's just so voluminous, but I really appreciate you all taking the time out and being available because I jumped in y'all inbox and y'all responded. So I really appreciate that and just you being willing to share the information. And like I said, I'll definitely be calling you all in the next couple of weeks myself to schedule my appointment. And I'm sure some people listening and watching will be contacting you as well. So is there anything you want to leave us with tonight?
Thank you. That's what I want to leave you with. Thank you for having the wherewithal to use your platform to share this crucial information. It's among the most important things anybody could consider ever. And you have just helped everybody who watched this, who will watch this, by giving them this information. So thank you for being bold enough to put this out there.
You're welcome. And just so everyone's knows, this is going to be available on YouTube as well. So you can share it, and feel free to share it on your platforms as well. So thank you so much. Jehan.
Same thing. I mean, I told you before when we started the show, thank you for doing this and having us on, because this is so important. And this is the missing link. And all we can do is just try to move the needle to continue to get the word out, the information, because it's so important. There's no one that's exempt from what we're talking about in this conversation. Literally, no one that is exempt. So go see one. If it's not Terrence or I, go see somebody. Please get a plan done. And there are a lot of folks, kids are getting into that whole stage now. What'd you call it, Rocky? The hybrid adult.
Hybrid, yeah.
Yes, the hybrid. There's so many, and I see so many, and I've got friends whose kids who are graduating high school and going off to college now. Have them do those basic things that Terrence said. He does not need to know what you have to do it. I've had some very responsible parents now. They got their estate plans. Baby girl just turned 18. The son is 20. They have them do powers of attorney and simple stuff, because if your kids are off at school, they get an accident, something happens, and you try to show up at the hospital and throw your weight around, you may run into some problems. And unfortunately, and I know Terrence and I both, we've opened the states for 19-year-olds who had to get emergency guardianship for.
That's right.
Yeah. That was my months. You tell me that I can't make a decision for my child.
That's right.
Because I told my daughter, no matter how old you get, you're still my child.
Mm-hmm.
But I get it. You know, laws are laws. So, okay. I'm on notice. I get it.
Yeah.
So
that's right.
We're gonna do it. We're gonna get it together. So thank you all. Yeah. Enjoy the rest of the evening and the weekend. And please reach out to me
too
if you need anything further. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you everyone for watching. Bye-bye.